I'm actually getting two spirits that are coming forward for you, a male and a female. So I'm assuming that they're a couple. However, the male is putting himself up forward. So I feel like the female, like she's still there, but maybe the male has something more to say. Um, Let me see what else they give me here. So I feel like this male figure, he gives me the sense that he would have been like a father figure to you. So, and it almost, it's more than just like a father figure. It's like someone who actually like took part in raising you. Um, in some way, shape, or form. I mean, like not like a primary parent, but they were there often. I feel like they would have like filled in a lot of space. And they're showing me a teddy bear, so it makes me feel like this is from like birth that they were like involved. Um, Let me see if they can give you some other information just to identify. When I ask them, I'm like, share a little bit about your personality. Like, I just hear this like hearty laugh that kind of comes across. Um, so this makes me kind of get the sense that this individual that they didn't really take life too seriously, that they may have been a little bit more of the easygoing person, like someone who was very, I want to say down to earth as like in a sense, but they also give me the sense of like, taking on a lot of responsibility. And when I go into the responsibility half, they're showing me their family, which I'll get into that in just a little bit. Does that information resonate with you so far?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Okay. What parts were resonating with you just so I can keep track?
Um, I did have my grandfather did he was around more often than he was for my cousins, but he was a musician, so he wasn't around all the time, but he was the only male figure in my life besides my father. And I
Okay.
didn't have, yeah, my
Okay.
father wasn't a father.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is really, again, it's just something that I wrote down, but it kind of reminds me of like a scope I noticed, a circle with like sorry for that blur feature. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's I forgot what that thing is called, but my grandmother used to have many of them in her house.
Did she? Okay, because I didn't know. I thought it was a scope to like if they were a hunter or something, but you
Yeah, it's
recognize
like
the
a
symbol?
leather thing
Oh,
that
okay.
she used to have a bunch of them.
Gotcha.
And it's
Okay.
actually my grandmother on the other side, but they lived together for it was a weird situation.
Okay. Maybe that was the other female that was coming through that was like kind of behind. Um, okay. Let me see if he can tell me a little bit. I'm gonna go back because sometimes another spirit will come in and then I lose track of who I was talking about. So I want to just go back to him. When I go back to him, he keeps bringing my attention to a belt around his waist. So I feel like this possibly was very significant in just the way that he carried himself. Like he was always wearing a belt. There was like never a time that you would have seen him without one. Would you understand?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I ask about family, I'm like, just show me a little bit more about like your family life and what was going on. And honestly, like the image that kind of came to my mind was just a bunch of like scribbles. So I feel like this is just, there's like a lot of, it feels like a lot of chaotic energy, but I don't want to say it's necessarily like leaning in a bad sense though. It kind of makes me feel like, would you understand there being a lot of children?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not like a lot, but yeah.
Okay, because that's kind of what, whenever I see like the scribbles going all over, that kind of makes me feel like it's chaos, but revolving around like just the family life and going back and forth and, having to be here and having to be there, just feeling like stretched in all directions.
Yeah.
So I feel like there was just like this sense, a little bit of overwhelm for him. But I also feel like he may have not been the person to speak about that. I don't think that he would have been the person to say like, "Hey, I'm overwhelmed. I need a break." I feel like he kind of had like this, again, it's that sense of responsibility to just, suck it up and just be there. And that's what he's saying. He was like, I wish I would have just took a little bit of a break. I wish I would have took some time to just be there and experience, things that were going on instead of being like in the chaos of it or feeling like he was responsible of like taking care of everything all the time. Even though I feel like he was very loved for that, but then there's also this other sense that like I don't know. Now I feel like there's a little bit of like complaining going on. It's like I feel like now he knows that like he was admired for that. But then I also feel like he's like kind of in the background saying like, oh, like I had to do this and that, and nobody says thank you. And it's like it was kind of just expected of him. And let me see if he can give me more details. He's showing me a car now actually, and this is an older style vehicle. It's kind of like a boxy, like square car. um, Let me see if he can give me the color of it. So, like, what's coming into my mind is a car that my grandfather had, and he had a Falcon. I believe it was a brown Falcon, a Ford Falcon. And that's the car that's being brought up to my mind, but it's mainly the style of it. Would you understand that?
Yeah,
Okay,
a lot.
awesome. But he was showing me it's like him going down the road, and it looks like there's like a body of water on the other side. Do you live on the East Coast?
Mm-mm.
You don't? Okay. Okay, so when he's showing me him driving, it's like down this road, and it looks like there's like it almost looks like an ocean that's on the other side. However, this could be a memory. So would you understand a memory with him driving to a beach? I don't think this is like a long vacation. This is like a day trip or something. But it could also be, and this is just another thing that's coming to mind, but this could also be a Great Lake. I'm only saying that because it's like I see a big body of water, but I also see like a sandy area. That's why I think it's a beach, but like an ocean. But it could be just a big body of water that has sand there. Um, that's what's reminding me of the beach. But would you understand that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. He's not letting me pass go with the car either. I'm just going to go back to like the simplest thing. So this is like travel, constant travel. I'm still not sure exactly like what this body of water is. I feel like that's significant for some reason. But I do think that the main thing here is that he was traveling a lot. Would you understand him playing chess at all? The game?
Yes. Yes.
Because he just showed me the chess pieces too. What other hobbies did you have? So when I asked for other hobbies, he's showing me a fishing rod. Again, I'm going to take that literal and say fishing, unless if you don't resonate with that, I'll go back to it and try to get clarification.
Yeah, no. Maybe when he
Okay.
was tiny, but no.
Okay. Let me see if you can give me clarification. What's the fishing rod mean? So what he's showing me, and okay, now I'm feeling like this is symbolic in some way, so it's definitely not literal, but he's showing me like the rod's in the water and he pulls out this like little tiny orange fish. So it's like nothing huge. So this makes me feel it's definitely not about like fishing. But what does that mean? Okay. All right. So I asked him what the fishing rod meant, and now he's giving me another symbol. He's showing me a hat. It's like a I don't know what they're called. It's not it has like a full round like siding to it. But it's small. So it's not like sombrero big, but it's like a small like black hat that he showed me. It almost like it kind of reminds me of like a magician's hat in a way.
It's like a bowler's hat, kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So he's showing me that. After I asked for more clarification on the fishing rod, I don't know where he's going with it. But
I think I might.
okay, all right. Okay, so yeah, so there's the fishing rod. He put the fishing rod in the water. He pulled up this like little orange fish. When I asked him for clarification, he showed me the hat. Um, I don't want to analyze too deep because then I'll get out of my the mediumship mind.
Mhm.
So let me see.
He was a double Scorpio. He can do that.
I love that. So now he's bringing me into, would you understand him spending a lot of time, I feel, in the bedroom? And I feel like this is
Mhm.
just like where he would, it's just like peace of mind. So it was like his own like little sanctuary of him going into the
Absolutely.
bedroom. And it's nothing really fancy either, I feel like. It's like pretty like minimalistic. And then he's like taking me out. Would you understand them living on like a like kind of like a rancher? It's like a one floor home.
Mhm.
Okay. Because he's like showing me like out. It's like he goes out of the room and then it's like this hallway and then there's like a just a living area, but it's like all one floor. And he's bringing me more towards the like the family room or a living room of some sort. So I feel like if he wasn't actually in his room, he was in the living room just kind of like hanging out. There's also a significance about the kitchen. However, I don't really think that that was like his thing. So I'm not really feeling like he was the type of person to be cooking all the time or doing any of that. But he's showing me like those two areas of being like his resting spot. I also don't get the sense that he was very much of like the outdoors type either. So I'm not getting the sense that there's any type of like gardening or hiking or something like that. But yeah, he makes me feel like he's much of a, like a homebody. I feel like that's something that he would have appreciated like when he was traveling. Now I feel like with the traveling, I feel like he enjoyed that. He's showing me the phrase that's coming to mind is like, oh, the places I've been. So I feel like he really cherishes that of like seeing all of these things. However, he really loved to be at home because I feel like it's just this normalcy at times. Like even though I feel like there was chaoticness like in the beginning that he was telling me, it's like still coming back to that familiarity. Um, that was like kind of like his safe zone. Would you understand?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm asking him, I was like, okay, did you pass from natural causes or was it an accident? And he's kind of like has me tinkering like in between. Um, so when it comes to like that, like in between, it makes me feel like that it was possibly natural. However, it's like something that could have been prevented. Would you understand that?
Hmm.
Okay. So I'm feeling a little bit of a heaviness in my chest area. Now, this doesn't have to necessarily be like the way that he passed away, but would you understand the chest area being significant? Okay. And when I feel into it a little bit more, this makes me want to cancel out the lungs and focus a little bit more on the heart area. Would you understand? Okay. Because it's definitely feeling like it's like higher up in the chest. Um, would you understand a heart attack?
No, not really. It
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. The only reason why I said that is because when I asked him to tell me a little bit more of like the chest things, he made me feel again with the preventative thing, he was showing me food. So I feel like what caused whatever was going on with him was possibly diet related. And that's what he said. Well, not necessarily that's what caused it was diet related, but I feel like that's what could have prevented it is if he would have watched more what he was eating. Would you understand that of why he would have showed me the food?
I kind of get why he'd show you the food, but yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I don't know. Yeah, it makes sense. I had to think about it.
Okay. All right. And you can share with me at the end, like how that all fit in. Let me see what else. What else can you share with me? He's showing me a jack-o'-lantern. And this is when I asked him, I was like, just show me something significant. And he's showing me the jack-o'-lantern, which always makes me feel like Halloween. What I'm being pictured, it actually is just taking me back to like Halloween at night on the street, like just walking around. Would you understand going out with him on Halloween and trick-or-treating when you were
I'm not
younger?
sure. I don't have a
Not
lot of
sure.
childhood memories.
Okay. But yeah, we'll just keep that in mind. He was showing me the jack-o'-lantern. It's making me feel like that's definitely like something significant about Halloween. And if that makes sense, like later, if it like clicks with you, just send me a message, let me know. I'm not trying to pull off of what you told me earlier, but I know that you said that he was a musician. Would you understand? I'm not good with instruments. But it's like one of the horns, and it kind of reminds me of like jazz in a way. Would you
And jazz
understand
makes
that?
sense. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because it's like I'm not even hearing like words being sung really, but it's like he's showing me like a golden. Oh my gosh, I wish I knew instruments. It's killing me because I can see the picture in my head, but I don't know how to explain it. Um, but it's just the one that's like kind of like going down and it like slightly goes up just a little bit. I think that's I'm probably explaining it wrong too. So
It's probably a saxophone, maybe, or a
I
clarinet.
feel like yeah, I feel like it would be a saxophone. That actually makes sense. Like I said, I'm terrible at instrument names. Um, but yeah, it wasn't a clarinet or anything. It wasn't something straight. It was definitely something like curved and kind of went around.
There's a
Would you
bass
understand?
clarinet.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Actually, when I said it wasn't straight, I was thinking of the flute when you said that, when you said clarinet. I told you I'm bad at instruments.
Know them well.
If that was a Jeopardy question, I would definitely get that wrong. I want to try to get a couple more things here and then we'll go into the messages. I'm asking if he has or had like any pets, and he is showing me a dog. It's a little white dog. It kind of reminds me, I call them the Caesar dogs. There's another thing that I'm not good at, like names of animals. But but it reminds me of like the dog on like the little Caesar food cans. Do you know what I mean? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Would you understand that being significant? This little
Think
dog?
so. Yeah.
Okay. I'm still working on getting names, so I'm gonna take a leap of faith here and see if he'll give me a name.
Mm,
So he's giving me the letter J. Would you understand the letter J?
not for him, but
Not for him. Okay.
mm.
Okay. So all right, we'll keep the letter J. Let me ask him again. I'm like, I want to know your name. Tell me your name. So now I'm seeing it's the initial M. The name that I just want to keep going to is Mike or Michael. You
Mm-mm.
don't resonate with that? Okay.
The letter
All right.
M is that's the name I was born with. It starts with an M.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's interesting that that came up then. Because I was thinking, I was like, what is this? Um, yeah. So he's just showing me, and that's like as far as I feel like I can get with names. It's like just seeing like a letter.
He
Sometimes I
hates
get
his
like the
name.
syllables. Did he? Maybe that's
Yeah.
why he's not sharing it with me.
He didn't share it with anybody.
Really? Oh, he's like, I'll tell you everybody else's name, but I'm not going to share my name. Oh,
Yes.
you'll have to tell me then what it is after. Okay, let me see if there's any messages that he'll share. So he's saying keep your head up, but I couldn't make out what the last part was, but it sounds like it's like a pet name or something. Um, oh, what was that? It started with a P. I almost want to say it was like keep your head up, pup, or something like that.
Hmm.
but we'll go in deeper to the message there. What did you mean? So I feel like he's bringing my attention to stress in your life, but I feel like this is like it almost feels like above average stress. And can you give me more details? Um, he's kind of making me go back to when I saw like all those scribbles and stuff like that, and it's like being pulled in a bunch of different directions and everything. And that makes me feel like that's a significant part too that he wants to bring forward. And how can we fix this? What are you saying? For me, I feel like now the other spirit that was here came through the female because things are getting a little discombobulated. um, so here, so let's focus on one person, please. So when they say like keep your head up, and like being pulled in a whole bunch of different directions and like having this like high level of stress, it makes me feel like it's just like you're taking on too much. He's almost saying like it's like me, like you're taking on like a lot of responsibility. But he makes me feel like it's about like just reaching out for help at times when you need it. He makes me feel like you might not do that. You feel you have this like urge to do everything on your own at times, and not necessarily like complain about it, but just keep moving forward. I feel like is where he's actually showing me a train though. It's like the train keeps like chugging by and stuff like that. And I feel like the message here, he's like, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to take time for yourself. Um, that the level of stress, he kind of makes me feel like it's like a slow burn, like it'll just like kind of like burn you out. And he says instead of like getting to that point where you feel like, okay, like what now? I don't feel like doing anything just because like, it's your mind's like running all these different directions. He's really telling me to like just like, okay, take time for yourself, take a breath, and the answer will come. So I feel like he's really wanting to emphasize about clarity coming regarding situations that you're in. And it's like I can't really even pinpoint like one thing because he has me. It's like he's showing me it's like there's like one road, but then there's like five different routes to go down. And he was like, if you take that deep breath, you clear your mind, like the answer will become clearer. They're just showing me the word trust, like trust the process, trust the process. So I feel like there's going to be stuff that will be out of your control. Um, but it's like, all she can do is just putting the word out there, doing what's all within your control, managing that, and then just releasing and surrendering and allowing things to just flow the way that they're supposed to. I feel like that's the message that he wants to share. So he really doesn't want you to burn out. He's like, calm down, take your time, take some time for yourself. Um, but yeah, that was the message. You want to share some validations that came through for you?
Yeah, there was a lot. The water thing, he had a big issue with water. He didn't want any of us near the water. He didn't like driving near the water because when he was younger, the boys were messing around in a lake, like a big lake somewhere, and one of his friends drowned. And that was a story
Oh,
that my mother would hang over my head every time she wanted to make me feel bad about something. And it was about my grandfather in the water.
okay. All right. That makes sense with the water then.
Yeah, the brown car, absolutely. One of his favorite stories to tell is he was driving me home from school, and I was bullied a lot. I went to Columbine, so I
Oh,
very,
okay.
and so he was driving me home from middle school, and I like ducked down because I didn't want the kids to see me. I didn't want them to make fun of me in front of my grandfather. He thought I was embarrassed of the car.
Oh,
And it wasn't until recently that I told my mother, I was like, no, I wasn't embarrassed of the car. I didn't want him to see me get made fun of. I didn't want to embarrass him.
yeah.
And he never knew that. I eventually told him in May the last time I saw him. I told him
Okay.
that that's what it was. And he was like, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Um, He had a lot of siblings when he was growing up, and he was the youngest, so a lot of children, but he had 3 daughters, and all 3 of his daughters just started popping out babies way too young, and I was the second. And so there was just like he was pulled in all these directions. So
Okay.
traveled for music. Chess was a metaphor for his life. He always talked about chess. He loved that I learned how to play chess. Um, the
That's
thing
really
with the
cool.
fishing rod, the small orange fish, he always said, "Don't be a small fish in a big pond,"
Okay, all right. I see
even
how
though he
that
hated the
fits.
water.
Yeah.
Uh, there was something else. God, I had bad handwriting. The thing about this, so when he passed, he was put in assisted living because he could no longer, even with 24-hour care, and my grandmother being there most of the time. Um, my mom is a terrible person, and they were like trying to threaten my grandma and put my dad in a better home that she couldn't afford because his insurance doesn't cover 5 grand a month. But
Yeah.
and so he was there and he got an infection. It's the very personal story, probably wouldn't want me to tell, but he got a very specific infection. And because the nurses don't know how to clean a certain body part that has not been altered. And then he was slowly getting sicker and sicker, and he had a stroke. And then that's when he went into, they medicated him to keep him comfortable. And then he passed a few days later.
Okay. 'Cause that was gonna be the thing that I was going to say was stroke, but then I was like, "No, no, I don't wanna be guessing," and, so I'd, like, stopped at the heart attack thing, but I figured I was like, heart. My
Yeah,
father, he also
very,
had a stroke too, but it was, like,
mhm.
mostly his diet that he was that caused it. That's why I was like, "Okay, the
The
food and."
food thing is, yeah, it's silly. He and I share a thing for eating breakfast at random times of the day, and I still
Yeah.
celebrate him probably once a week. I eat breakfast at a weird time of the day just to celebrate him, and he was
Oh.
on his way to go get food when he had the stroke and fell.
Oh.
It's
Wow.
probably breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, I think that's, wait, the jack-o'-lantern, I think was, we were supposed to go back and visit him in October of last year, and he was trying really hard to hold on to October, I think. He passed the beginning of August.
The beginning of August. Okay.
Yeah. The white
Yeah.
dog was my other grandmother whom he lived with. Her name was Sundance. The J name is my grandma Jeannie, so his wife
Okay.
that had my mom. And
Oh,
yeah, that's probably the other woman with him. She doesn't speak much. She had a stroke and she was paralyzed on the left side of her body for more than half of her life after that.
oh, wow.
The M was Melissa because he would always sing me Sweet Melissa.
Oh,
He was a jazz musician. He played the guitar, but he was a jazz musician. He got me playing the clarinet in the middle, like I think elementary school, and then I moved to the bass clarinet, and so I played the bass clarinet for many, many years.
yeah.
And then he loved the fact that I listened to my favorite song is by the Glenn Miller Band, which is swing music, the big horns and the da 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 da. And so that's something he shared with me because I was the only kid that liked music the way that he likes music. The belt was because he was really skinny and he always had to wear a belt. We made fun of him.
Oh.
He made fun of himself too. There was another one. What was it? I wrote it down. I just have really bad handwriting. The jazz thing, it should be in there. Oh, yeah, maybe that was it. When I was really little, I'd go with him to music things, and he'd always sit outside and play for us, and he always wanted to be home, but he loved going out. He toured with Sarah Vaughan for 12 years. He was on her
Wow.
CDs. He played at the Caesars Supper Club in Vegas when it was big in the 60s. And he was all about living every moment of life and not taking it too seriously. And growing up, he'd always tell me, just breathe, Liz, just breathe. Like, you got to breathe. You're taking on, like, you're trying to do too much. Because he's the one that I knew my childhood sucked. I knew my parents were terrible. And I thought I dug down to that root, did the shadow work. And in May, he told me something that I didn't remember because I was an infant, and it just threw everything into like this back into that loop. I basically sat in a high chair facing the corner most of my infancy. Yeah, like they didn't pay attention to me because they didn't want me to hurt the carpet if I was not in the high chair. They expected me to be an adult my entire life. And
Yeah,
so
that's
he
tough.
always hated that. And he always wanted to come back and check on me and take me to do things that my dad wouldn't. So,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, he was very lucid for a moment in May when he told me this. And then my aunt kind of looked at him and he got real quiet and he knew he wasn't supposed to say anything.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah, that's why he was the only man in my life that wasn't shitty.
yeah.
That's probably why it was like a father figure, but it was my grandfather.
Yeah. That's what I was like, because I was thinking, I was like, it definitely feels like a dad almost, but I was like, I don't think it's dad though. So I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what was his name though?
His real name is Clarence,
Clarence. Okay.
but he goes by Tonk.
Honk. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
His
definitely was
lease is
not close.
Tonk. Oh, he did that
When
on
I'm
purpose. He hates his name.
Yeah, because at first
It's not me.
I was actually thinking like, and I know it wasn't a name that I said, but I was thinking Chris, and I was like, no, it doesn't. I don't think it's Chris. That doesn't feel right. But at least the C would have been close, though. So
Yeah,
darn,
it
I
was
should have said
Clarence,
that.
and he does not like that name. He'd always just went, when he was a kid, they called him Honky Tonk.
Oh,
That was his name. So he just was Tonk
yeah.
his whole life after that.
Oh, oh
Wow.
wow. Thank you for all the validations. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Hello everyone, you made it to the analysis portion of this video, and let's go ahead and break down this video together. So this was my session with Lissa, and honestly, I feel pretty good about how it went now that I'm looking back at the video weeks later. So I'm looking at it from a less critical standpoint and more of a open and grounded standpoint. And I feel like that's something that a lot of mediums do immediately after a reading. We get in our head thinking that it could have went better when really we just have to learn and tweak as we go. So there was definitely some strong evidence that came through in this reading, but I can also see a few areas where there is definitely room for improvement. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through what went well, what I would refine, and how I plan to improve moving forward. First, let's go ahead and start with what went well. Right away, I connected with a male figure. I was getting that it was like a fatherly figure or someone on like the fatherly side, and that there was a strong sense that I was receiving that this individual actually raised her and was very present in her life, and she was able to validate that very fast. And I also brought through aspects of his personality, like he was very down to earth, he had a hearty laugh, he didn't take life too seriously, but also carried this sense of responsibility on him as well. So when personality comes through, I absolutely love this because I feel like it really builds spirit's identity over just giving a bunch of facts and things like that. So, for example, the one thing that I really loved that I got was the brown car, which turned out to be a core memory for her. I also mentioned that he would always wear this belt, and she confirmed this later on in the validations portion. She said that, he was very thin. He always wore a belt, and sometimes they would, poke and, joke at him about it. Also, during the reading, I remember drawing a symbol and it had a little cross in it, like a circle with a cross in it. And I thought that the spirit was trying to tell me that they were a hunter because it reminded me of a scope. But it turns out that it was actually like a sun catcher that her grandmother put on her porch, and they were all over. So I think that that's definitely worth highlighting because even though my interpretation was off, the visual itself was very accurate in a way that she could understand. There were some other details that stood out, like the chess reference. I thought that that was a really cool piece of evidence that came through when I asked if he played chess. She explained later on that, yes, he like would metaphorically always use chess as like life references in his life, that he played chess and he was very excited when she learned to play chess. So I thought that that was also another piece of very meaningful evidence that came through. Another moment that stood out was how his passing came through. So this is on two sides here, because there is an aspect that I'm like, wow, like that was really cool. I'm pretty happy that I got that in the way that I explained it. But then there's another half of where I think that like my mind came in, and I talk about that in the second section of what I would improve here. But what I saw in my mind when I asked them about, like, how did you pass? And I remember I was getting a little bit more specific, like, was it a natural death or was it like a accident? And he showed me a gas gauge and it was like in the center. So I interpreted that as, okay, this was a natural passing, however, it could have been prevented. So she was able to validate that, of that, yes, that's kind of exactly how it lined up, that he had an infection, which ended up leading into a stroke, which aligned really well with that symbol with the gas gauge. Now, for what I would improve in the next readings to follow is that I noticed that I tend to talk a lot instead of pausing and checking back in with the sitter. And there were moments where I could have just delivered the evidence and just let her respond, but I ended up elaborating, which to me personally, I think that that can very much dilute the strength of the evidence that you're bringing through or the messages that you bring through. And another thing that I noticed was that I second guessed myself here and there. It happens to the best of us in mediumship, but I was definitely noticing it when I watched it over again. For example, when I sensed the instrument again, like I know that I'm not 100% with like instrument names. I'm not an expert by any means. And what I thought I saw and what I explained, I feel like was clearly enough for her to understand, but I kept just naming off instruments. I feel like I do this a little bit for, it's like my anxiety, like coming in, and my own mind coming in and thinking like, oh my gosh, like, I want to get this right. So then I just start to overcompensate for it. And that is just definitely something that I'm working on, is just trusting those first impressions, explaining what you're receiving instead of just trying to refine it in real time. There was also a moment when I feel that I stepped out of my connection and into my own thoughts. So, this is what I was saying with the first part of the whole how did you pass and getting the gas gauge symbolism. With this, I remember that I mentioned a heart attack. Now, I didn't feel that that information came from like the same place that the rest of the information that was coming through, but it felt like it was more of my mind just trying to make sense of what I was receiving. What is the most logical thing that you can think of right now? And of course, like, I wish I didn't try to go deeper, because that's when you get in trouble, is when you start tapping into that logical side of your brain instead of like the right side, the creative side, the medium side of the brain, and allowing that information just to come to you and say it as it's coming. So once again, just going back to something that I think is pretty major, is just kind of checking back in with the sitter. I do circle back eventually, but I think that the reading would just flow better if I felt a little bit more interactive and validated things in real time instead of just continuing to build the connection. And finally, the message at the end. So here again, I feel like it had something to do with my nerves, it had something to do with anxiety, but I noticed that my power drops when it like goes to the message, and I feel like I almost get into this like internal panic. You might not see it on screen, but it's like I'm thinking like, okay, the message, like this is the important part. Why did the spirit come to speak to their loved one? What do they want to say? And I feel like I started over explaining the message, and it ended up becoming a lot longer than what it needed to be. Probably because, again, I was just putting a lot of pressure on myself to make it perfect or very deeply meaningful. And the reality of it is that less is usually more when it comes to the message. So don't over elaborate. Even if it's something short, go ahead and just say it. Don't feel like there's a need to keep going with it. But here's what I think that I'm going to focus on moving forward, is that I just want to receive and trust that first thing that I receive without elaborating, without second guessing it. I just want to trust that first initial instinct, and I also want to speak more concisely, say the evidence clearly, the way that it's coming through, not going immediately into interpretation and then just stopping. I want to check in with the sitter more often instead of just talking continuously, like I said. And I want to notice when my mind steps in versus when I'm actually receiving information. And then also with the messages, I just want to keep them simple, direct, and impactful. No overthinking, no over elaborating, trying to fill in space, or thinking that it's not specific or meaningful enough. Overall, I think that this was a strong reading with some really meaningful evidence, and I'm excited to keep refining these areas as I keep developing. And that's really what this series is all about. It's all about growth, it's all about awareness and becoming a better medium over time. So if you're curious about how these experiences unfold and what I will learn next, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video.